Hey guys, this is Yumi and welcome to my channel Money with Yumi, where I'm going to be talking about anything and everything related to money and how to grow your wealth. Before we start, I want to do a quick introduction to the FIRE movement, which stands for Financial Independence Retire Early. Now, people in this community have done detailed calculations of how much you need to retire at any age and the reasoning behind it. I'm sure you have seen people retiring in their 30s and 40s and wondered if it's really possible. The answer is yes, it is. It really comes down to aggressive saving and investing, and really doesn't matter how much you make, you can still do this if you wanted to. Because at the end of the day, retirement is not an age, it is a number. You just need to figure out how much you need to sustain a minimalistic lifestyle so you don't have to work another day in your life. And I know it's hard to believe that it's possible to retire on your current salary no matter how much you're making. And I didn't believe it until I actually tried it. Just to give you an idea of the FIRE movement, by saving 50% of your income and having a savings rate of 50% means that working 1 year will allow you to save for 1 year of living expenses. So if you work for 30 years and save 50% of your money each month and live frugally, you would have saved for 30 years of retirement. So if you're currently in your 20s, you can retire in your 50s and have enough money to last until you're 80. And the more you save when you work, the quicker you get to retire. It's a little bit more complicated than that, and I am simplifying things. But in order to reach financial freedom, the first step is to hit that like button because it is free. It doesn't cost anything and it really helps out the channel a lot. And once you do that, we can get started. And I'm just kidding. The first step towards financial freedom is to have a budget so you are better able to manage your finances. What I have noticed among my friends is that they either do not have a budget or have a traditional approach to budgeting and isn't effective in helping them grow their wealth. Having a budget is so important because you need to know where every cent of your money is going. And that way, it's easier to control how much you can spend, how much you have to save, how much you have to invest. And now you probably already heard about the 50, 20, 30% budget rule, which suggests that you spend 50% of your after-tax incomes on needs, 30% on wants, and then 20% towards saving. And before you think I'm going to repeat that and tell you that's what you're supposed to do, no, I'm not. And here's why. Using a percentage on your salary is just ridiculous because based on this ratio, every month you'll be spending 80% and only saving 20%. Even with a mortgage debt, no one should be spending 80% of their salary a month. Spending 80% of your income is a really bad idea, especially if you want to retire early. Let's take, for example, the average pay of a fresh university graduate at $3,600. And after deducting 20% CPF, the take-home pay is $2,880. So using the suggested percentage of saving 20% a month, that's only $576 a month. It would then take you 4 years of work to save for 1 year of living expenses, which means you have to work for another 37 years before you can retire. And this is only if you invested all the money that you have saved with a 7% compound interest return rate. So you're looking at 50 to 60 years of working if you don't invest. Now, on the other hand, if you have a savings rate of 50%, it will take for 1 year of work to save for 1 year of living expenses and only about 17 years of working plus investing to retire. So in the FIRE movement, it is recommended that you save and invest at least 50% of your monthly salary after taxes, and the most effective is to have an 80 to 100% savings rate. That means based on the example mentioned earlier with the average take-home pay and a 50% savings rate, you would need to save at least $1,440 a month. And why should you save $1,440 a month? Because in a recent study, researchers found that the basic standard of living for any single man or woman above the age of 65 would need at least $1,379 a month. Don't forget, this amount does not account for the 2% inflation rate year over year on the cost of living. So in order to have the most basic standard of living, you would have to save 50% of your income, or a minimum of $1,379, whichever is higher. So the more money you make, the more money you should save and invest. I've been using the FIRE method for years, and it's really something I've learned along the way through trial and error to see what works for me to achieve my goal of financial freedom. And here are 5 tips where you can as well. The first step is for you to figure out what is your income after taxes and CPF. Now, if you're like a freelancer, have no CPF contributions, then you should be setting aside at least 20% more to save and invest. That way you don't lose out on the beauty of compound interest. Next, figure out what is your monthly expenses. First, start by figuring out what is your base expense. This expense is like the bare minimum in which you have to pay in order to survive. Expenses here are essential to your survival, like phone bill, utilities, like water, gas, electricity, internet bills, transportation costs, groceries, and your rent if you have any. And before you add your Starbucks, Coffee Bean, LiHo, Koi, bubble tea, whatever drink spending here, I want to stop you because those are not essential. Yep, you heard me, not essential. And no one should be spending $4 to $6 a drink a day, because not only is there some crazy markup, it's just a complete waste of money. Next, figure out what is your non-essential or entertainment expense, and this varies from person to person, so feel free to add things like a night out to the bar, pigging out, shopping, cable TV, gym membership, Netflix, or any type of membership fees. And before I forget, yes, you can add your Starbucks, your bubble tea, your Coffee Bean spending here. And a lot of these purchases and non-essential expenses are made out of impulse. So if you know that you're an impulsive buyer, try to sleep on it before you decide if you want to really get it. And the next part is where people would enjoy doing most, is to set aside a portion towards discretionary spending, or what I do whatever the I want money. Because what is the point of making money and working so hard if you can't spend some of it for pure enjoyment? But it should only be 5 to 10% off your monthly salary. Third, list out all your debts, starting with the highest interest rates at the top and working your way down. And also write down the total debt amount and the minimum monthly amount you have to make. And you should really know what interest rates you are paying for all your debts. There are a wide range of debt, like student loans, credit card debt, car loans, and mortgage. And we can talk more about debt in another video. So if you're interested to know more about debt, let me know. For anything over a 4% interest rate, make sure you pay that off first before you even attempt to save or invest, because you're saving a lot more just by paying off that high interest rate debt. And just in case you were not paying attention to anything I was saying, this is important, so I'm going to repeat it, okay? Paying off any high interest rate debt is more effective than saving or investing your money. Usually, credit card comes with an average interest rate of over 15% and sometimes the whopping 28%. So if you're watching this, please, whatever you do, do not fall into the credit card trap. Only use your credit card towards purchases that you can pay outright in cash, and try not to pay anything in installments, and make sure you pay your credit card balance in full each month when it is due. And if you can, set up automatic payments. I use my credit card all the time because it's easy to track my spending and help me gain points, which I can then convert to LA miles and travel for free. So if you're watching this and do not have a credit card yet, you should get one. There are many credit cards out there with like sign-up bonuses, cashback rewards, or airline points with no annual fees. So do your research and find one that suits you best. The fourth step is to then ask yourself, what are your goals? But before that, let's do some calculations first. Here's something we're gonna do different. We're not gonna pay our wants or needs first. We're gonna pay ourselves first. So take your monthly income after CPF and taxes and divide that by 2, and this is the amount that you're gonna set aside each month. Then subtract your monthly essential expenses from this amount, followed by the monthly minimum amount on any debt lesser than a 4% interest rate that you have to pay each month. And remember, if you have any debt that is above 4%, you should not be setting aside any money each month towards saving or investing, but work towards paying off that debt first. And once you have paid off that high interest rate debt, then you can come back to this video and follow the next step. And once that is done and the amount is still at a positive, go ahead and subtract your non-essential expenses followed by your discretionary expenses. And if the amount is at a negative before you even subtract your non-essential expense, then there are only two possibilities. Either you're not making enough money or you're living above your means. And I'm pretty sure if you're a millennial watching this, 90% of you are probably spending way too much money than you can afford. There are only two recommendations that I can give, and the first one is to downgrade. Review all your essential expenses and see if there's any way to reduce the amount allocated to essential expenses. For example, if your essential expense consists of top-tier internet and phone bill and you're always taking a taxi, then cut those expenses. You'll have to do a lot of trial and error and sacrifices have to be made, but at the end of the day, it will be worth it to do so for your own benefit. For the second recommendation, the reality is you have to find a way to make more money by taking on a part-time job, a side hustle, or increasing your skills so you can earn more money. But either way, you have to do something to increase your income. And if your number is at a negative only after accounting for your non-essential and discretionary expenses, then go back to your non-essential and discretionary expenses and see what you can cut from there. Honestly, if you do not have enough money left over to save or invest, then you are living paycheck to paycheck, which means you're doing something wrong. Now, expenses in the non-essentials are things that are really unnecessary for your survival, so try to cut it as much as possible. And I just have to put it out there, if you're spending $6 on coffee or bubble tea a day, you will be spending $2,000 a year and losing out on investing that money. And if you had taken that $2,000 and invested in an index fund that has an average return of 7% over the course of 10 years, you would have lost $27,000. So you really need to think about the sacrifices to get yourself into a better financial situation, because most people that have achieved financial freedom in their 20s, 30s, and 40s had to sacrifice a lot to get to where they are today. And if it's still at a positive value after accounting for non-essential and discretionary expenses, congratulations, you're doing a marvelous job. You probably have a budget for everything, you know where your money is going, and now you have more money each month to save and invest. And for the fun of it, I would love to know if your number is at a positive or negative, so let me know in the comments below. Now, after all these calculations, which might give some of you a headache, it is time to set your goal. The first financial goal that I would recommend is to set aside money to build up your emergency fund, which can then cover your expenses for a minimum of 3 to 6 months and sometimes up to a year, depending on your obligations and debt. This is so you have enough cushion for any unexpected setbacks or expenses that may come up. Once that is covered, you can go on to invest the rest of your money and come up with your own financial goals, like having a higher savings rate, saving for retirement, putting more money into the stock market, saving for a property, and many more. And if your goal is to have a higher savings rate than 50%, adjust the numbers accordingly and pay yourself first, then review all your expenses and find ways where you can cut down on your spending to maximize your savings and investments, or find a side hustle. Finally, develop a good budgeting habit where you're tracking what you're buying and where you're spending your money, and you can use apps like Spendy, Expensify, YouNeedABudget.com to track your spending, or if you don't like those, there are plenty of other apps out there. I personally use Microsoft Excel because I can build my spreadsheet to the way I want it, and I have been keeping track of my expenditures since 2011. And because your income, expenses, and priorities will change over time, make sure you revisit your budget and goals and adjust it accordingly. And just because you're making more money doesn't necessarily mean that you should be spending more, because if you maintain the same expenses each month, even when you're making more money, then you have more to save and invest. If you can figure out what you can cut from your spending, it will have a much more powerful effect than increasing your income. That's because cutting an expense would not only increase the amount you have left to save over each month, but it also reduces the amount of money you need when you retire. If your goal is to retire within 10 to 15 years, then simply live on roughly 20 to 25% of your take-home pay. And by not wasting money on things you do not need and do not add value to your life, you can speed up your retirement age and increase your net worth much faster. If you have noticed, my method is to always pay yourself first. That way you can budget more effectively, and it forces you to live below your means by looking into your expenses and cutting your spending so you're not at a deficit, and hopefully be financial free at some point in your life. This is also what I call the millionaire mindset, because the rich invest their money first and try to get cash flow from the investment to spend. It's also important to invest whatever extra money that you have outside your emergency fund to help you grow your wealth at a much faster rate. I hope you guys learned something from this video. If you have watched all the way through and have not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. If you have questions about budgeting, feel free to leave me a comment below and I'll try my best to answer your question. And don't forget to destroy that like button and ring the notification bell so you get notified whenever I post a new video. It will really help with the YouTube algorithm, and I really appreciate you for watching. Thank you, and until next time.